Sorry to interrupt again. He's asking, do you know the team code?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But I am recording it, so
Okay.
he should be able to see it later in Canvas. Okay, so I'm gonna use this blank page screen. So you all should be seeing a blank page screen right now to kind of talk about what's going to be on the final exam, um, and generally what you should study for that. So final exam, I think, is December 3rd. And it is going to be 150 points in here. And the way that this is set up is 100 of those are going to be new material. So that would kind of be like exam, um, just like the next regular exam for us of new material. And then 50 points of it are cumulative. And it's going to be from certain sections of earlier in the class. So I want to talk through those separately about like what do you study for the new material and what do you study for the cumulative. So the first thing on the new material is that you need to know basically definitions and examples of aseptic, disinfection, sterilize, and decontaminate. So I kind of had that in a weird order, but what's the difference between sterilization, disinfection, antisepsis, and decontamination? What are some methods that sterilize? What are some methods that we use for antisepsis, and what's technically the difference between those? So there's a section um, about that. That's basically the first page. The next section on the new material is going to have a word bank of methods, a word bank of different physical and chemical control methods. And then there are questions about those methods. So it will have examples of, say, like pasteurization would be one control method, and aldehydes is a control method that's chemical. There'll be a word bank of those. And then you use the word bank to answer short answer questions about the different methods. And you'll just kind of fill in the blank using the word bank. Next section is scenarios. So given a scenario, um, choose a method of control and explain your reasoning. Explain why you chose that method. And there'll be 3 or 4 of these type of scenarios. So those will be more of a type sentences, essay type questions. Oh, I'd like to move the whole thing together. That. Okay, we've got the scenarios. You need to know drugs, modes of action. What are the big categories by which drugs act on microbes? So they can affect the membrane, they can affect cell wall, they can affect DNA, RNA synthesis, or they can affect ribosomes. Those are the major modes of action. You need to know factors to consider before prescribing or before choosing a drug. So these two things were kind of what we talked about last Friday. And then the last big section on the cumulative part of the final is therapeutic index calculations, which we will be doing at the end of today. So that's cumulative stuff. There will also be multiple choice with that goes with, sorry, that's the new stuff. All of this that I just talked about, this is on the new section of the test, not the cumulative section. That'll be 100 points. It will still have multiple choice. But that's kind of your review list for the new section. So let me put in a separate blank page that's just about cumulative topics. And when you look back through what we've learned this semester, the cumulative topics are going to come from Unit 1. You need to remember stuff about growth curve, about prokaryotic structures, and environmental factors. Those are going to be some of the major cumulative topics. There is also some material out of, what unit is this from? A little bit out of Unit 2, which is topics about DNA transfer or recombination. That particular lecture. And then from Unit, I don't remember what unit it's from, one of the particular units, stages of infections. Stages of infections, specifically that symptoms graph. So how does the person feel during each stage of their infection? So starting with incubation stage, prodromal, period of invasion, and convalescent stage. Those are the big topics that are going to be on cumulative part of the exam. And remember, that's going to be 50 points. That will be come at the end of the whole entire exam. One other thing that I forgot to mention that is in the new section, so you would want to go back and add this in that part of your description, but the new section of the exam will also have parasite matching. Forgot to include that, but it's definitely going to be there. Parasite matching, and there will be 11 of those. No, wait. How many of you are in this class? 10 of those, sorry. 10 parasites for the matching section. That'll be part of the 100 points new section.
Is the accumulative section going to be multiple choice, or is it going to be more free response questions?
It's free response.
But then, so like, is it going to be like any graph drawing, or is it just?
There could be.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're studying for the cumulative section, The possible graphs would be the graph of stages of infections that people feel, and then growth curve type of
Um,
graph.
I have a I have a question about how are we supposed to draw this on the exam? Like,
That's a really good question. So I have to. Maybe you won't have to draw it because it is going to be in Canvas, and I hadn't thought through that. I mean, I know I have to put it on Canvas, but yeah, I'm not going to have you draw a graph and upload it to Canvas for sure. So I'll have to figure that out. Good point. Um, I don't know. I since I'm going to be putting it on Canvas, I really don't. I could make the whole thing multiple choice, but that would take me a long time. Um, I don't know. It probably won't be totally multiple choice because typing in that many individual questions would probably take me too long. But it's not going to have drawing. There will be some discussion essay type questions on the cumulative part. Sorry, on the new part. On the new part to describe your why you chose that control method and a few other things. But it's mostly going to be short answer and multiple choice, I guess. Matching, some matching. Good questions. Other questions about the final exam? You are going to need the lockdown browser for this. So I've put a link into Canvas. Let me go and show that. Remind you all where this is. There's a link in Canvas in here to download the lockdown browser if you haven't already done that for another class. Remember, you need to do that on the computer or the iPad or whatever you're going to use that you're actually going to take the exam on, and it will need to have webcam ability. So what this is going to do is when it's time for you to take the final, you will use this lockdown browser to do that, and it's also going to have you turn on your webcam so that it can record your face basically. And then if you're doing something weird, it kind of flags it. Um, and then it sends the professor a report of who did weird stuff, and then we can go and look at that. So don't wait too long to download that browser once you get to the place where you're actually going to take. And then there's this practice quiz so that you can test it out. And everybody that does the practice quiz will get, I guess, 5 points added onto their final. And that's just to make sure that you're not going to have any issues doing that.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say my camera is broken. Like I've done lockdown browser for a class one time, but my camera was broken, and
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't allow me to take the test, and I still haven't gotten it fixed, but I plan on it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't get it fixed, do I just like email you and let you know? Because there's like no other computer I can do it on, like in my house.
I'm not sure how that would work. So I haven't looked into it yet to see if I would have to. I don't know. I would really try to get it fixed because I think a lot of the classes at King are doing this and are using this lockdown browser. So let me know, like try to get it fixed and test out that quiz and let me know at least 2 days ahead that if you're going to need some kind of different accommodation. But I don't want it to be a last minute thing where like 15 minutes before the test you let me know, because I'm kind of new at these systems, and those of you who are in AMP2, I don't know if you noticed how difficult it was for me at the beginning of class last Friday when somebody let me know the morning of the exam that they have to be added into the alternative version. I'm not very good at fixing that stuff immediately.
Okay.
But if you can't make it work, what we'll end up doing is, well, how could I? Because what I normally would do is have you join on Teams and turn your camera on so that I can see you. So webcams are going to be pretty important for taking finals at a distance, and yeah. But if you're having a lot of trouble with that, let me know at least 2 days ahead. I'll try to work out something. Like maybe you could join Teams on your phone and take the test through Canvas separately or something like that. We'd try to figure out something.
Okay. I'm gonna see if my daddy can pay for it or something.
Yeah, it's just kind of an unfortunate thing about the times that we're in. Because last spring when we had online finals, there was a lot of cheating going on at the end of the semester. Not necessarily in my classes, but in the university as a whole. So that's why we're doing the lockdown browser webcam stuff, is to try to avoid that at the end of this semester. So, but as always, any questions that you all have over the break, just email me. And I'm going to be down at my parents' Wednesday through Friday, but starting Saturday, Sunday of this weekend, I will be checking email at least once a day, and more often when it's work days. So just let me know and stay in communication, and try to give me a couple days notice if I need to do something different. That would be helpful. I am also planning in that lockdown browser, there ought to be a calculator on the screen for you to use. And fortunately, this math that we're going to do for the other, for this last little section, it's not difficult math. It's basically dividing and multiplying kind of things. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of talk through the end of what we did on Friday. And this will be a little bit repetitive, but I know some people couldn't join last Friday, so I am going to be slightly repetitive. And so what we had talked about last Friday in regards to how do you pick out a drug and how do you know what is a good drug for a certain infection, we have this particular value called MIC, MIC, which stands for minimum inhibitory concentration. Minimum inhibitory concentration. And what that is it's the lowest concentration of drug that can prevent microbes from growing in a tube. So lowest concentration of drug that prevents growth in a test tube. And we can see that in this example here, if we set up test tubes with all the same amount of bacteria in the beginning, and then we put different amounts of antimicrobial drugs in those, the lowest concentration that inhibited the growth of the bacteria in the tube was 6.4 micrograms per mil, would be the MIC of that particular drug. This picture down here is looking at a similar concept, but each row is looking at a different drug. So amphotericin and fluconazole, and I don't know what these others are. But in this type of assay, each particular row is a separate drug, and the little container that has the X in it is showing what is the minimum inhibitory concentration of that drug that blocks the bacterial growth. So in this one, pink is showing bacterial growth, and then when it turns blue, there's not bacterial growth. So if we looked at this situation, it looks like the most powerful drug would be this one here, because it doesn't take much of it to stop the bacterial growth. So that number of minimum inhibitory concentration, that's telling us how much of a drug does it take to prevent growth in a test tube. I'm again going to skip over this slide and go to this one. So when we're prescribing drugs to people, we want the drug to be effective at killing the microbe, and we want the drug not to kill the people. So it's really important to know how much of the drug does it take to help the infection. How much of the drug does it take to end the person's infection? We need to know that. And we also need to know how much of the drug does it take to harm the person. There's some drugs that work great to kill microbes, but they're also harmful to the person. So what we want is we want there to be a very big distance. We hope that there's a really big distance or a big difference between the amount that it takes to end an infection versus the amount that it takes to harm the person. So that difference between how much kills the infection, how much harms the person, we call that the therapeutic index, or the TI. Therapeutic index. And here's a dumb example. Say that you have a headache and you're going to take ibuprofen to help your headache. What's the normal number of ibuprofen pills that you all take for a headache?
Like 800 milligrams, or like in between that.
Yeah. Like, do you know how many pills it is?
It's normally like a 200 milligrams per pill. So depending on how bad it is, I'll either take 1, 2, or 3, or 4.
Yes. So
Jesus Christ.
it depends on how big you are and how bad you feel. So I usually take 2. If I'm feeling terrible, I'll take 3. You can actually take up to 4 if you're a normal size human and is okay. How many does it take before we would pump somebody's stomach from them taking ibuprofen? Ballpark.
Like 2,000 or something like that.
I would say more like 20 or 30. So if you took a whole bottle, that's way too many. That's going to harm you. But if you take 4, that's going to help you. So imagine if the toxic number of ibuprofen was actually 6. If the toxic number was 6, it would be a more controlled substance, or we would never want to give people a drug if the toxic number required 6 and the helpful amount required 2 pills. That's too close together. It's much too close together. So we would want to have, if, for example, if the therapeutic number of ibuprofen is 4, go on the big end, the toxic number is going to be more like 40. like we don't want to be close to the toxic dose. We don't want the toxic dose to be close to the therapeutic dose, because that will lead to a lot more slip ups and people accidentally poisoning themselves. So we really want, I'm going to go backward a slide now. We really want, go back here. We want the therapeutic index to be high. Therapeutic index should be a high number. And the bigger the therapeutic index is, the further away the toxic dose is from the therapeutic dose. And so this particular equation, we're going to divide the median toxic dose, or the dose that 50% of the people suffer toxicity, by the median effective dose, which is what is the dose that will help 50% of the people. We call that therapeutic index. Another way that we could write therapeutic index, and the way that I'm going to have you use in this class, is toxic dose over the MIC. So you will need to memorize that equation. TI equals toxic dose over the MIC. And then when we're doing these calculations, the bigger that ratio is, or the bigger the TI number comes out, the safer that drug is. So TI should be a high number if we're going to have optimum safety. So what I want to do next is do some examples of how we calculate therapeutic index using MIC values. And that's what this slide I've been skipping over is for. And normally on a paper test, I would either print this, I would print this whole chart in the test or show it up on the screen or something. So there will be something like this chart in Canvas for you to look at that will provide you with MIC values. So what this is showing is we've got, for a particular bacterial strain like Staphylococcus aureus, for each one of these drugs, what would be the minimum inhibitory concentration for these drugs to kill Staph aureus in a tube? And when we look through this, there's quite a range of numbers. So for the drug cefaclor, the MIC for a Staphylococcus infection is 4. For ampicillin, the MIC for a Staphylococcus infection is 0.05. So because when we're doing these TI calculations, therapeutic index equals toxic dose over the MIC, and we want the TI to come out to be a big number, that means that generally lower MICs tend to be better. Lower MIC values tend to be better. So if I go back to this Staphylococcus aureus example, if I could use penicillin or ampicillin or sulfamethoxazole to treat a staph infection, I would tend to choose ampicillin first because it takes way less ampicillin to effectively treat that. So I wouldn't have to give the person as much ampicillin as I would penicillin, because ampicillin is much more powerful against the Staph aureus. It only takes a little bit to kill it. So I'm going to give you a problem to work out here in the next few minutes. And I'll probably end up giving you 2 practice problems today. So if a person has E. coli infection, someone has an E. coli infection, and you're choosing between cefaclor, the drug cefaclor, and the drug ampicillin. Cefaclor has a toxic dose of 325 microgram per mil. Scoot this over. 325 microgram per mil. And ampicillin has a toxic dose of 790 micrograms per mil. Which drug is the best choice and why? So use your TI equation and the information in this chart and these toxic dose numbers for these drugs to come up with an answer for that. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute while you work on that. I feel like I should sing some Jeopardy song or something while you guys work on this.
The better one is the C.
Cefaclor?
Cefaclor, yes.
I don't actually know until I work it out, which I'm going to do next. So I tend to, for practice problems, I tend to just kind of make these up on the spot. Okay, so let's work out for cefaclor what the therapeutic index would be. So it's the toxic dose over the MIC. And I'll be setting these up so the units cancel. So it'll be 325 micrograms per mil over 3 micrograms per mil. And then I am going to do this on a calculator, but it'll be like 108 or something like that. 108.3. Notice that because these units cancel, the therapeutic index does not have units. All it is a ratio. So it's like a safety ratio. So therapeutic index for cefaclor for E. coli infection is 108.3. So what about ampicillin?
Well, so like that means that you'd have to take 108 healthy doses then to actually have damage?
Yeah, 108 times the healthy dose, or well,
Okay.
108 times the
Recommended or the
recommend. Generally, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, thinking about when you drank the bottle of ampicillin,
Mm-hmm.
like, this is very related to that. Sorry, it was amoxicillin, but it's
Yeah.
kind of related to that.
Nice.
Like, you wouldn't send people home with a whole bottle of amoxicillin if drinking a tenth of it was going to kill them. Kind of related to this concept.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So for ampicillin, TI would be 790 micrograms per mil over, 12 micrograms per mil. And those cancel. And that number comes out to be 65.8 is the therapeutic index. So for that scenario, cefaclor would be a better option than ampicillin.
How much do you just want us to round to the 10th whenever we do these math problems on the final? How far do you want us to round?
10th is fine.
Okay,
I,
thank
I
you.
tend to ask, this is gonna stink too. I always ask, like, show your work. It's gonna, I don't know. Like, I don't know how you show your work in Canvas. How do you do it for math? Like for statistics?
If it's like a multiple choice, like a written out one, you just give us like we just type it out. So we'll do like 3 with a little slash, and then that means divide, and then
Yeah.
the 325, and then equals 108.
Yeah, I guess it'll have to be something like that. But I'm not going to be picky about decimals. You mostly want to make sure that you don't get the equation upside down, and that you somehow show your work. But this kind of thing will be maybe 8 or 10 points total. Like, you might have two problems. Yeah, usually it's work out two problems, and then the A part of the question is to write down what the equation is on this section. Let's do one other example. Maybe make the table be at the bottom here. Okay, new example. And what I'm going to do on this one is write down some toxic dose up above. Maybe I'll make that a column on this table. Put it in red, what the toxic dose is. Okay, we said the toxic dose for ampicillin was 790. And the toxic dose for cefaclor, 325. Okay, so what I'm writing in red underneath each drug is the toxic dose. And I'm making these up. They're totally made up. On the exam, I give you some more realistic actual numbers for toxic dose.
Is this the same strand as the Escherichia coli, or is this a different one?
So toxic dose doesn't depend on the strain. It's just like how much of that drug in a person would be toxic to the person. The MIC number is going to change with the strain, but the toxic dose is just between like the person and the drug, if that makes sense. Is that answering what you're asking?
No, not really. I mean, I didn't really ask the question right. So I'm
Oh,
saying the numbers at the bottom for the TD could be for any strand that you pick for this next example,
yes, yes,
or
yes,
was okay.
yes, yes. I get what you mean now. Yeah. The toxic dose numbers can go with any strain. Yes. So now I need to think of an actual question. Practice problem. Okay. So this will kind of be a three-part practice problem. Someone has a Pseudomonas aeruginosa infection. We'll just call it Pseudomonas. Someone has a Pseudomonas infection. What is the best drug to use for this person? And you need to assume that they're allergic to penicillins. Penicillin class of drugs.
For the numbers, because how like the tetracycline, it's like 1 to 4, or well, it's like less than 100. What do you want us to like pick for that? You just want us to give us the number that it
Good point.
picks?
Let's see. If it's 1 to 4,
Oh wait,
go
that's
with the
for the
higher.
wrong. Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, you're going to use for Pseudomonas. But if it says greater than, kind of picked a bad example, but go ahead and use the number that, like if it's where it says greater than 500, just use 500.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll try not to pick ones that have a range or a greater than on the actual exam. Okay, so the way that I would approach this problem is if you know that the person is allergic to penicillin class drugs, like you don't even consider those. So those are out at the start. And then what you could do is for the remaining three drugs, figure out what the therapeutic index is for those. So we will need to do one for sulfamethoxazole, one for tetracycline, and one for cefaclor. And so we would take the toxic dose over the therapeutic dose. For tetracycline, it would be 1250 over 100. And for cefaclor, it would be 325 over 4. So that one would be 25. Tetracycline, it would be 12.5. I'm going to do that. There we go. And then cefaclor, it's going to be some bigger number than those others. So cefaclor would be the best drug to use. Is that what you all got?
Yeah, something similar to that. I chose 50 for my toxic dose. No, yeah, for my toxic dose, I guess. And I came out with like low numbers for that, I guess.
So you said you chose 50 for your toxic dose?
No, I'm not 50. What is it? I mean, yes, that's what I did. Yes, I
Yeah.
think.
So when I give you these problems, I will always give you what the toxic dose is, and also what the MIC is.
Sorry, I meant the MIC.
Yeah. Okay. But that's generally how you do these problems. So they're not real hard. The main thing that if students have messed these up in the past, they memorize the equation upside down. It's toxic dose on the top, minimum inhibitory concentration on the bottom. And then once you've got the equation memorized, it's kind of just putting in the numbers and making some comparisons about what's the best. So that's kind of the type of math that I would want you to do on these. I wanted also to look up and make sure I tell you exactly when the final is, because I think it's on December 3rd, but I need to verify that. It starts at a certain time. Okay, December 3rd, which is a Thursday, and it's going to start at 10:30 Eastern Time. So December 3rd, 10:30 Eastern Time. Where did I? Wherever you wrote the info about what day the final is, it's Thursday, December 3rd, 10:30 Eastern Time. And it will be open for 2 hours. The way these lockdown browsers work, once you start the final, you have to go ahead and finish the final in one. You should go to the bathroom before you start. You should, clear your work area before you start, and make sure that you're really ready to go. So. If you all have any questions about this material or the final or anything the next couple weeks, please let me know. And I have so enjoyed teaching you all this semester. I'm really glad some of you are going to be in AMP2 in the spring, and I'll have some familiar half faces to see in the spring. But if there's ever anything that I can help you with in the future, if you need reference letter or assistance in some way, just let me know. I really appreciate you all, how you've worked this semester and had a good attitude about all the craziness that we've experienced. So good luck, and let me know anything you need or any questions that you have. And I will be working on getting this exam into Canvas in some way. If any of you have other questions, just stay on Teams and I'll stay on for a few minutes.
Yo, hey, Dr. Ong.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I just want to say thank you so much for a great semester. This class is honestly one of my favorite classes I've taken so far in college.
It's my favorite to teach too, and I think it's just
it's so interesting and fascinating. It's really kind of opened my eyes. Like, I mean,
yeah.
Like for instance, like I've only just ever talked about the immune system, but I never actually knew the intricate steps that actually created it and how your body uses it. And I don't know. This whole class was super fascinating, and I love the way that you taught it.
Oh, good. Well, AMP2 will be kind of similar.
Okay, sweet.
Kind of similar, except a much bigger class. So
okay, yeah. I mean, that wouldn't be.
That's kind of good too.
Yeah. And also, thank you. You kind of saved my life a little bit with that unknowns project, because I thought I was like had it in the bag, and then you said to do another couple tests, and it turned out I was completely
Did
wrong.
it change it?
Yeah, I changed it. I thought it was like Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and then it changed it to Klebsiella pneumoniae.
Well, good.
Yeah. All right. Well, sweet. Thank you so much, and you have a great rest of your day, Dr. Ong.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.